Yeah, well, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's just I'm filming a YouTube video and I kind of hate doing this kind of stuff and kind of sucks. My viewers are low key idiots and I have to make kind of stupid content for them and yeah, it just sucks doing that. But yeah, can I for the side? Can I do the garlic fingers? Yeah, and I'll do that with the signature sauce. That'd be great. Thank you. And then just a large iced tea would be great. Yeah, and that's everything. Okay. Thank you. Bye. 2025 has ended and it's time to talk about some TV. And a lot of the times we compare the previous years with this year's. And I think in terms of TV, this was a solid year. I think, was it a great year? Maybe not. But as well, sometimes with TV, I don't really venture out as much as I could. And a lot of times with TV, it's like I'll be watching a show, and if it doesn't click within the first couple episodes, sometimes I just gotta stop watching it. Yeah, TV is something that like it's harder to be invested in because you don't want it to waste your time. With the movie, I think it's easier just to be like, okay, it's it's an hour and a half, 2 hours. Um, if it's not the best thing, that's fine. But TV, you're committing more time, so sometimes you got to be more selective with it. But I think it was a pretty solid year of TV. It was kind of like a 2022 revival. That's what I found. Yeah, for the most part, pretty solid year. There was a couple shows that I haven't checked out that I know are good. Adolescence is like the big one that I've been meaning to check out and I haven't gotten around to it. So it's not going to be on the list. Um, and then another TV show that is getting a lot of praise that I tried to get into, but Loki did not like it was The Studio. I'm just going to get into it for a minute just because like maybe it gets better after the first couple episodes, but it just felt gimmicky. And I think when it's a show that's about real celebrities and they're playing themselves, you it feels like they're playing it safe or like they're not doing anything crazy with it just because there's like it feels like there's no stakes that involved just because it's like, oh, these are people playing a version of themselves, a parody of themselves. So it feels like I don't know, it's just like what is the point of this? Like they're just playing themselves and I know Seth Rogen and his buddies are playing different people, but it just felt like there wasn't much at stake or just like there's not I don't know, I couldn't connect with it. Severance season 2, great freaking start. 2025 had a great start for TV. We had Severance, White Lotus, I'll get into that in a second. But Severance I think was a great continuation and there was a lot of bold choices that it made. Yeah, like I rewatched season 1 again just to get in the mood, and it's such a good. There's such a good consistent vibe and tone that season 2 brings, but it's also bringing in new elements, and I feel like it's exploring the world and exploring the concept like to the furthest degree, which is awesome. And the way it ends, a little bit of a cliffhanger, a little bit of a whoa, what's going on, and they dive into so much more interesting stuff and I think for the most part a lot of people liked it but I've heard some stuff that people were a little bit disappointed or didn't enjoy it as much as the first which is kind of a shame. But when season 2 was coming out there was a lot of hype around it and I think that was super fun as well. Weekly episodes, I think that's something that I'm okay with or I actually like it. I think for a show like that, it's great to have weekly episodes just because it builds off of it. And of course, it's going to build hype. So that's kind of the point of doing that. But it's a show that every week I was like, okay, let's go. Let's go. Another episode. And then another great show that was coming out at the same time kind of was the White Lotus season 3. Did I like this as much as the other two? Not exactly. But I think that doesn't really matter because there's a lot of different elements that's going into this and there's interesting like spiritual elements. This was kind of the season of spirituality and I thought that was really cool. Like each season has their own kind of theme or yes, kind of a circulating theme throughout that connects with characters differently and spirituality was something that I saw throughout this season, and the cast is great. I think it did take its time for things to really ramp up. So I think there's that element when rewatching it, or if I choose to rewatch it, might not be as rewatchable as season 1 or 2, where things escalate fairly steadily. This one has kind of a slow start, but still great nonetheless. Rehearsal season 2. What can I say? This was a crazy season. Nathan Fielder just pushes himself in kind of every project he does and still finds a way to surprise me. Like, I think that it felt more, he brings a lot of introspective elements into the rehearsal show, and I think this goes a little bit further than that, which I think was really cool. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, just he's so committed to the bit, and you wholeheartedly respect that, where it's like he's doing something kind of crazy, kind of not stupid, but just like really, like he's doing all of this for this moment. And I like the whole theme and ideas circulating, like pilots and airplane safety and that kind of stuff. And I think he's bringing comedy and these interesting ideas to a serious topic, and I think it's pulled off really well. The Bear season 4, not going to say too much, just because I wasn't as invested in this season as much as the other seasons of The Bear. And I think it was just at a time in the year that I wasn't fully hooked on it. Not to say that that's the show's fault necessarily. I think it was a little bit of me. There was a lot of stuff going on at the time when the show came out. So yeah, it felt like it left off where season 3 was building off of, but it felt like it wasn't going too much farther from season 3. I feel like there was a couple like plot points or a little bit of stuff that was kind of lingering in the end of season 3, but didn't really, not really super satisfying as a series, or sorry, as a show, as a season. That's what I meant to say. I think, there wasn't any like bad episodes. I think just as a whole, I wasn't like connected to it. Just everything was well done. I just, not sure. Then the biggest stinker of 2025 shows was Stranger Things season 5. I think it ended off on a good note. Not the whole episode or the whole final episode, but I think there was a little bit of stuff that I enjoyed. A lot of people disliked how it wrapped up, or after this big kind of climax, the episode kind of goes on for another hour, and it's like, this is what happens to these guys. And that was kind of the stuff that I was like, okay, there we go. This is what Stranger Things was like. Because with Stranger Things, it's like, for me, and I know for a lot of other people, it's like you're watching the show because you're connected to the characters, and it's like, oh, these little mysterious, creepy sci-fi stuff is happening to them, but you're more focused on, you care about the characters, of course, and you care about what happens to them. But this season really focused on like the super sci-fi elements. We got to build everything to the max, and a lot of people are saying it's like very like Marvel-y, like it's the Marvelification or whatever of Stranger Things. Like, and I agree. There's so many big, huge set pieces. I don't know. There's a lot of big, grand. They tried to like scale everything to the max, but with that, there's so much things happening that it doesn't feel grand. And there was a lot of stuff that was kind of groan worthy, where it's like they're trying to make this the cool moment. But there's so many like quote unquote like cool moments in each of these episodes that's like, as the effect isn't there. And it's also the characters aren't built up in this season as they were in the previous seasons. It's just kind of like you're kind of just connected to it because you used to care about the previous seasons or the characters from the previous seasons. It feels like everything is like every character here is like a watered down version of what they used to be, which is unfortunate. And I think the big thing is the writing and acting wise. There are some people that are duds. My least favorite character in the freaking whole entire show is Murray. Just get him off the screen, like seriously, like. And everything was, I just felt the character interactions were so predictable. And I know everyone's been chirping and harping on it, but it's just every scene is, okay, we have this plan and this is how it's going to go. Okay, so what if I told you? So this right here is Vecna, but this right here is Dimensions X. And then we have to get Vecna on Dimension X. However, what we do, we flip Dimension X, and then Vecna goes... It's like, what are we doing, guys? Not every little prop needs to be part of your plan. I know they have to do that, and I know that's what they did in the other seasons, but it's every episode we're doing that. It's like, really, guys? And then every time they're doing their plan, and then someone's like, but we need to blah, 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 blah. But we need to get the guy to do the thing. Okay, and yeah, there's... Every time they have these scenes where it's like we need to explain that this is how we do this thing. And then there's no like it's not a challenge for them. It's like, what are we doing? Like they're just like, okay, this is going to be really hard, guys. Okay. And then they just kind of get it done. And also I'm going into a little bit of spoilery stuff, but I know for the most part people don't care or have watched it already. But they go flip-flopping through the Upside Down. It's like, really? And there's a lot of moments which kind of piss me off where they're like, they go through the Upside Down, but they just don't show it. They're just like, okay, and then they're back. Okay, and then, like, there's multiple characters that, like, in an episode, they're going back and forth. And then it's like, it feels like the Upside Down isn't, like, unique or, like, threatening at all. It's just like, oh, it's just like a place we can go now. Okay, we can just like freaking go. And it's like, and they don't, there's a lot of times where I was like, wait, how did they get out of that? Wait, how did they do that? And then I think there was a couple times where it's like characters are like, to other characters, like, wait, how did you end up here? Wait, how did you do that? And they're like, believe me, it's a long story. I'll tell you later. And then they don't tell them later. And I was like, what? Yeah, just kind of disappointing as a season. And I think the last hour was probably my favorite of the entire season. So that was kind of, it needed to end for sure. But let's get into other shows that I liked that were first seasons. Starting off with Adults, which is a show that not too many people have been talking about, but just a really, really good sitcom, super funny, and I'm seeing more shows starring young actors, young people from like people you'd see on the internet or people that have been on the internet, not people you would see on the internet. People that, are whatever, influencers, internet celebrities, whatever you want to call them. There's more of a shift happening with TV, and I think that's really exciting. And yeah, we're getting more shows that are Gen Z kind of shows starring Gen Zs, and I think this is a really cool shift. And Adults is a great example of that, where it is relatable to Gen Z people, but it's also super funny. And it's not, what makes it a great show isn't just because it's relatable. It is a super well written comedy show, and the acting is super good. The chemistry of all the characters is great. And yeah, I remember when the show premiered, my cat unfortunately passed away, and very, very sad, very devastating. So I decided that night and then the day after to just binge the whole show, and definitely put me in a better mood. And I think that's something that's super cool about shows like this, where it's like, to have like a good impact, you don't need to be super emotional. You don't have to have, it doesn't have, for something to be super impactful to you as a show or movie, it doesn't have to be emotional. It can be something something comedic like this. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's special to see that kind of stuff. Another pretty underrated show that came out this year that I loved was Common Side Effects, which is a animated Adult Swim show. So good, and I completely like overlooked it or just kind of underestimated it. Like a lot of people were saying, this is a great show, gotta watch it. And I was like, sure. I think just because when I think Adult Swim, I think, funny, goofy kind of shows. And yeah, this is a goofy show, but there was a lot of dramatic elements, a lot of dramatic stuff at stake. And I think having this show animated is super cool just because it goes into like the psychedelic stuff with taking drugs and that kind of stuff. I don't want to give too much away or talk too much about the plot. But it does more than you'd think, I guess, or what I thought. And each episode is fairly quick, so it's super easy just to get into. Totally loved it. I think hopefully we get a season 2 because another show that I loved was The Chair Company. Of course, Tim Robinson. I love Tim Robinson. This was the year for Tim Robinson, man. Friendship, and then this. And I think with this, I think it's interesting, or I'm interested to see how this holds up for me on rewatch. And as well, it does build up to another season. So I'm curious to see because it leans into a different territory than what you would expect from the first episode. Like it goes into a different direction in some elements. So I'm interested to see how that comes into season 2, if they're going to continue with that. And yeah, I'm just interested to see how it holds up on rewatch, just because it was a show that was coming out weekly, and I did enjoy the storyline to it, the mystery to it. But a lot of the times when watching the show, I was thinking, okay, if this show wasn't funny, I don't think I would be as invested in it, because the mystery and the storyline is good, but a lot of the times it's like a slow build, or there's some stuff that isn't like as dramatic. What I'm trying to say is, I think seeing another season of this, seeing how it all kind of builds up, I'm interested to see that. But yeah, as a show itself, it's still like really well written. But really the thing that hooked me in was the comedy. And I think it's interesting to see because someone else brought this up, that with a lot of Tim Robinson stuff, Tim Robinson is like the insane one, or he's like the most just kind of out there crazy aspect of the show or the film. But with this, he's still kind of out there, but the elements and the events circulating him, or the stuff that's happening to him, is also kind of weird and like insane. So a lot of the times his like reactions are somewhat justified. Like he'll freak out about these weird like conspiracy like things. Yeah, and also the way it's shot is super cool. I think the director of Friendship was working on this as well. So like certain things with the cinematography are fairly similar that I noticed from that, which is super cool. But yes, I loved it. Speaking of love, I Love LA is another great show, and is one, like I said, with adults, is more of a Gen Z kind of show. It's about Gen Zs, but as well, it doesn't feel like cringe or corny or whatever, which is great. They introduce a lot of this internet lingo, internet that, whatever, but it doesn't come across as weird or cringe or anything like that. And I think initially, I do find everyone in the show funny, but sometimes with these certain types of characters, they do play exaggerated LA versions of themselves or of people like that. And sometimes a show like that, it's like, okay, like I can only handle this much, or I can't handle it all the time. So at first I was like, okay, I like this, but this could get annoying. But I think it does further down the show, they introduce stuff that happens to the characters. I don't want to spoil too much, but they do have like dramatic elements, or there's stuff that gives more to these characters than just like a funny comedic stereotype, I guess. So there is more built off of that, which I really appreciate, and I think that's something that stands out in this show compared to other shows of this nature. So I think that was really good, and hopefully there's another season. The chemistry as well. The chemistry is great. Last show on the list is going to be Pluribus, which I did really like. I know it's kind of divisive in some people. A lot of people saying, "Oh, it's slow, it's hard to get through, and it doesn't really leave too much." There's not really much stuff that happens. And I think that's valid. I think that's a valid point. But I don't know. I think knowing, because of course Vince Gilligan did Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, and with Better Call Saul, honestly, there was a lot of parts in the series that kind of had me in a lull, where I was like, okay, I get why they're doing this, or this is fine what they're doing, but it just feels like a lull. But then once you get to the end, you're like, okay, this is paid off. Or when you spend so much time with a character, there's so much, stuff that happens in the show that might not be as insane or more mundane, but because you're spending so much time with these characters, then you see kind of what happens to them in the end, or the impact that it has, that kind of the buildup that it had in that. It feels very satisfying. So I think with this, I don't want to judge too hard on Pluribus, just because I can see it going in an interesting direction. And I think it's hard to judge a show like this just off of its one season. But I'm not saying that I thought it was boring or anything. I think I was enjoying it, and then I wasn't as invested in the first episodes. I was like, okay, this is cool. This is a cool concept. But I'm just like, okay, not really as invested. But then I took a break, watched Stranger Things, and then I was like, okay, this is really lazy. This is really stupid. And then I came back to Pluribus, and then I was hooked. I was like, oh, right, this is what sci-fi television, it can be well written and it can be smart. And then I was like, okay, this is awesome. I think just one thing that I really didn't like that was a total missed opportunity was John Cena. He's in the show for a little bit. He has a scene. He's talking on TV and he plays himself, and Carol's watching him talk on the TV. And it's just a missed opportunity, because imagine if she was watching the TV with John Cena and she says, okay, I hear someone talking, but why can't I see him? And I think that would be awesome. And then she does like a fourth, breaking the fourth wall, and stares at the camera, and what the heck? Or does a gym face. I feel like that's what Pluribus needed, like a little gym face or something. Yeah, Pluribus was a great show, but if they had some gym faces in there staring at the camera, probably wouldn't have been a 10 out of 10 show. That's all the shows that I kind of watched this year that I want to talk about. There's a couple stuff that didn't really need to talk about. What have you guys been watching on the television last year? And is there any good shows coming out this year in 2026? I actually don't know. I don't know. Yeah, feel free to click off anytime now. Yeah, go ahead.